To hurt some of y'all feelings, but this needs to be said because I'm honestly getting sick of it. Chili from TLC being called the sellout for donating to Trump. Nick Cannon getting called the sellout because of what he said about Democrats. And then we got black ICE agents getting called sellouts for doing their job. And every time I see that word sellout, I'm not even looking at the people that's being accused anymore. I'm looking at the person that's making the accusation. Who owned them? Who bought them? What was the price? Was Chili sold for a donation? Was Nick Cannon sold for his opinion? Were black ICE agents sold for a paycheck? Maybe it was you just couldn't handle the fact that they made a choice without running it past you first. So instead of saying you disagree like a normal person, you decided to reach for a word that's rooted in ownership. Because deep down, some of y'all don't believe in independence. You believe in assignment. A lot of you believe that black people are assigned to think a certain way, vote a certain way, live within this narrow approved version of blackness that only you co-sign. But the minute somebody steps outside of that assignment, a lot of y'all brains start to short circuit. So you won't debate their ideas at all. You don't even try to reason with them. You don't even question your own goofy ass assumptions. You just shout, sellout. You know, almost like it's a spell that's supposed to bring them back in line. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's not intelligence. That's called conditioning. Hell, let me make it even more plain for you. You're literally using the language of slavery to attack other black people for exercising their freedom. Let that sit with your spirit real quick. You're literally calling free choices evidence of being owned. That's how backwards this is to me. That's like watching somebody walk off a plantation and saying, nah, you must have been bought by another master. You know, it's like it almost never crosses your mind that maybe, just maybe, that black man or black woman belong to their damn self and not you.
I think that end was absolutely powerful, because you really have to think about this term sellout. What does that mean? I'm assuming what it means is a colloquial way of saying someone who has sold their soul, which means someone who's betrayed themselves on behalf or in service of another. So I think when he says at the end, the question is it that there's someone who owns themselves, or is it someone that is owned by you? That is a brilliant and prophetic question to really ask. And I think that is something right now the black community is wrestling with. And I think the reason there's so much anger and vitriol on this side is because there is a transitioning happening in the black community specifically, but in the general populace altogether, which is that we have spent about 70 or 80 years under the sort of auspices as race being the great divide. And I think that's changing. Race is no longer the great divide. And in fact, what's happening is our great divide is now between those who have conservative views and those who have liberal views, no matter what race you are. So like I said, if you got a black liberal woman and a white liberal woman, and you list their top 10 priorities, 8 of them would be the same. There's almost no significant difference between black and white liberals. And truthfully, there's not a significant difference between black and white conservatives. So what's happening is old black people who are stuck on the plantation are sitting around going race, 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 class, gender. And this is their worldview, and this is how they see everything. And they are perplexed by black people, and a growing number of black people who are moving out of that paradigm and are saying, no, that's not us. And they say, well, wait a second, you got to be over here, because this is our paradigm. This is what we believe in. We see the world through racial lens. And there are other black people saying, no, there's a whole lot of different ways to see the world in which race can be included, but it isn't the primary feature. I had, as most of us do, over Easter, a conversation which turned political with a relative of mine. Once we start talking about politics, things go off the rails. But I made this point in that conversation. I said, in the United States, this is a cousin who's black. In the United States, we think about race because we think of race as a key feature in our society. I said, but in other societies, race is not a key feature. Because he was saying Latinos are so upset that voted for Trump. And I said, well, no, not the conservative ones aren't. They're not upset that they voted for Trump. And I said, because for them, they come from a society that may not be, a race may not be a key feature. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, there are some societies where religion is the key feature of the society. There are societies where class is the key feature of society. Most of the world, race is not a key feature. In fact, very few places where race is a key feature. So when you look at the world and you think, oh, well, it's a black this and a white that, so now I know the dynamic. But they may live in a place, I said, if you go someplace, they care more about whether you're Shiite or whether you're Sunni than they care if you're black. They care more about if you are nobility or if you're middle class, whether or not you're black. There are other societies where they care about whether how much wealth you have, whether or not you're black or whether or not you're white. So most of the world is not living under a race paradigm. And what the problem here is, many black people in America are no longer living under a race paradigm. And these people are becoming increasingly frustrated by the fact that they can't understand that because they're still stuck under that race paradigm.
Celeste hit it on the head. And I've dealt with that honestly my entire life. Being from the family that I have where there are, white people, black people, Hispanic people, and Native Americans, you deal with that in America where they only see you, meaning the liberals. I grew up in DC. They only see you as one thing. And so they automatically expect for your thoughts, your dreams, what you want to do in life, just everything to surround around being a liberal ideas. You go to, these liberal schools. I've all of my education is extremely liberal all the way
Mhm,
up to NYU. So
mhm.
it's all liberal. And then you get out and you're not. And they haven't figured out how to deal with that because everybody that's not white is to them on the plantation. It doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, you speak Spanish, you speak Portuguese, it doesn't matter. So in the United States, um there's that, and then you have to contend with the fact that it's a group of older folks, and let's just be frank, it's the baby boomers. Okay, the baby boomers have taught the liberal ones, have taught the other generations that this is where you should be because of civil rights, when I assure you, most of, if not all of the millennials and Gen Z, but even some of the Gen X have never experienced what their parents and their grandparents have gone through. So with that being said, there's no ties to that. And it's more of a, okay, well, what have they done for me lately? What does this group do for me? But anytime you go to question that, it's a sense of, well, you are a sellout for asking that. You are going against the grain. You're harming your ancestors or other people's ancestors. It's always, a pushback instead of looking at it as free thinking, looking at it as, well, how can we get, these communities out of poverty or out of this situation? It's never looked at that. And I think it's done that way purposely to keep certain communities in step and in line.
You're absolutely right. When you go to other nations, even when you look in the continent of Africa, where
Mhm.
everybody looks the same, they're dividing amongst themselves based off of ideology. It could be religion, it could be whatever tribe, could be their family, it could be class. Look at India. India is full of Indians, but I mean they have a caste system. Here we're so stuck on this race thing, and you're absolutely right, Mika, in the stance that it is the baby boomers, but you have a lot of younger people that have been indoctrinated on these college campuses
Yes.
that that spew this same type of nonsense. And we've been talking about it on this channel for quite some time that honestly, we're really divided by ideology and rhetoric and beliefs. We're really divided by it. As much as they want to say it's race, it's really not. You get, Celeste said it. You get a black liberal and a white liberal together, they're going to agree on probably 85 to 90%, of what's going on in America. No different than, you get a group of conservatives, white, black, Hispanic, Asians, that are conservatives, they're going to agree. So it's really not a race thing anymore. And it probably hadn't been that for quite some time, although the only people that continue to bring it up is Democrats. That's the only one. Everybody else is kind of moved away from it. But you got this group of people, this 10%, this boule crowd of black folks that anytime you decide to step out and say, you know what, I'm thinking for myself, they feel like it's their job, you know what I'm saying, to go out and capture you and bring you back.
And
it's crazy.
Roland is a prime example.
Yeah.
Anybody that speaks, he has to come out and go to his iPad and tell everybody that you are not allowed to be a free thinker. If you do, you're hurting the black community, you're hurting black women, and this, that, and the third. When honestly, all of the policies that I've ever seen in my lifetime and thereon hasn't helped anybody. Not black, not white, not anybody.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, the thing is, when you become a free thinker, you are actually a detriment to the Democrat Party because there's no room to think freely within that side of things. You just have to go in lockstep with whatever they tell you to go in line with. The other day, there's a guy out here that I know, he's running for office, says he's a conservative, but he's a conservative Democrat, which is such an oxymoron. But he jumps out there and it's just like, everything is race, and it's black folks this. And he says, well, I'm Haitian, but, I've talked to black people and they said that they don't, see me the same, as them. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, of course they don't, so there's even division, within that side of things. And that's what I was telling them. I'm like, dude, stop looking at everything through a racial lens, and start looking at things through, an ideological lens. And that would actually save you. It will save you mentally.
Honestly, that sellout, listen, it's my soul, not your soul. And the problem is this hive mindset has everyone believing that we are a collective. I was born by myself, unless I had a twin. I will die by myself. I will stand at judgment by myself. So whatever I do is up to me. I'm not selling out anybody because this is my life. And the problem with these people is they have this collective mindset, this hive mindset, where they think that we're all supposed to think the same, we're supposed to move the same. And if you decide to free think, then you're the problem. I'm sorry. Are you standing before judgment with me to explain my decisions? No, you're not. So when people make those statements, that just tells you where they sit in life. I agree with what Celeste was saying, because I was thinking the same thing. When you look in other parts of the world, like I said, I visited other parts of the world. I was in Italy. I was just American. It wasn't that I'm a Black American. I wasn't this. I was an American. They heard my accent. They're like, oh, she's from America. And that was it. I went to Greece and I was fumbling the Greek trying to talk to them. Again, they just saw me as an American. Don't talk about France. France was looking at me like, this stupid American that cannot pronounce anything in French. They didn't even want to hear from me because I couldn't speak their language. But here it's this black, white, this weird thing that we have going on. And when you really dig down deep, it really isn't black versus white. Because as we pointed out, Torre could actually fix his mouth and say it's okay for a white liberal to call a black conservative, a black ICE agent, the House N-word with the hard R. So if that's okay, then that word means nothing, and that whole race thing is not even a real thing, because it's if I agree with you or not decides if I belong in your little clique. The other thing, when you're talking about the Haitian American, that was the thing that throws me off too. Within the black community, do you know how frustrating it was for me growing up? Oh my goodness, it was so frustrating. Because me being born, raised in New York, and people would say, and I won't even say then, because I feel like, and I was going to say that with Mika, there was a point I remember growing up when race relations weren't crazy like it is now.
Yes.
Race relations, I think after, like, I will always say, after Obama, race relations went
Yeah, it
crazy.
got worse. Yeah.
Because when I was growing up there, we actually had a nice, it was a nice, like, people were able to get along. It didn't matter if you were black, white. I had a white boyfriend when I was in high school. I had an Asian boyfriend when I was in high school. Like, that was not a thing. It was normal. No one was looking at you crazy for these things. Where later it became this whole obstacle. And then I think later on in life was when I started hearing about, I'm not American, and that, oh well, you can't talk to us black Americans because your family is from the Caribbean. And it used to frustrate me. Well, it frustrated me since I started doing this. It started frustrating me because I'm like, I only know being black American. I was born and raised here. This is the only thing I know. I don't know anything about what it is to grow up in Trinidad. I have no clue what it is to be Trinidadian. And the Trinidadians don't accept me because I was born here.
Right.
So people like me, I could feel what Mika is saying, because people like me, I get frustrated because black Americans don't want to claim you. Trinis don't want to claim you. My mom and dad gave up their citizenship to be Americans. They don't have dual citizenship. They are Americans.
Right.
But people will still divide you because they will say, well, you can't speak because you don't understand this experience. I can speak to what it is to be a black American from 1980 on, because I was born in 1980 and I only know what it's like. I've only lived here. This is the only place that I've lived. So it's very, but there's always this division, this crazy division. And it is always frustrating because I think the divisions that they create is so dumb. And when we really come down to it, I personally look at it, y'all know how I look at it. You either saved or you unsaved. That's the only division you need to know. You saved or unsaved. Now the world will say you're either part of the haves or the have-nots. I say you either saved or unsaved. Those are the only things I need to know. That's the only thing I care about. So if people want to say that I'm a sellout for thinking freely, listen, you're not dying with me. You weren't born with me, so I can think however I feel like. And if you're upset about it, that's your business, not mine.
Well, the people are
Absolutely.
going to find a reason and a way to divide themselves. On the daily wrap up crew, probably about maybe a month, maybe 2 months ago at this point, there was a African brother from Benin that was on there, and they couldn't understand it what he was saying, but he was saying, just because you have the same amount of melanin as me does not make you my brother.
Right.
And they could not fathom it. They're like, wait, what do you mean? But we all black. He was like, no. He's like, I come from a place that has, I think he said somewhere along the lines, it was like 70, 80 different tribes, in this one country. And he was like, the people that are adjacent to us are not my brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're from the same country, we don't even speak the same language. We don't think the way, we don't believe the way. Our cultures are different. You know what I'm saying? And he came out, when he came out and said it, I was like, finally, somebody.
Why?
Because he was letting it be known, like, hey, one, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. But two, it's not about how much or how little melanin you have. It's about ideas.
Mhm.
That's really what this is about. And in our country, it's really starting to manifest and play itself out in that way. It's really showcasing, the ideas that you stand for. What type of country do you want to live in? And we're being divided along those lines.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it. Now, when I hear people say, oh, because, well, Mika's a sellout because, she's a conservative, this, that, and the third, or Celeste, hey, your own family will call you, man, sell out, bootleg, this, that, and the third, because you decided that, hey, I'm going a different direction. I'm good with that. That doesn't bother me. That lets me know, okay, I know where I stand with you. I'm good with that. As a matter of fact, I would prefer, no different than, if there's, some form of racism or something along those lines, let me know up front. I'm good with that. And
They
that
don't
way,
understand that. Like, wise, they don't understand when conservatives say that, right? I say this all the time when I go on liberal podcast or I talk to other liberals and we have debates, and I say, well, they're like, well, it's racists that are in MAGA, okay, and they get upset with me. They're like, you don't care about that? No,
Exactly.
because the last time I checked, there were racists everywhere. I can I
exactly.
can I can name a ton of them from the Democratic side. You guys like to say that they switched, but I can't fathom how they would switch in 2 years because of the
Mm-hmm.
civil rights bill. But nevertheless, um, they don't understand that. So when you approach them with that whole, I don't care about that. What's the policies? What's in the my favorite thing, the tax bill. Okay, what are you trying to tax me on? What are you trying to take? What do you want to own? I don't care that he sees brown skin. So do you, because you keep trying to put me in a box. So
Yeah.
everybody sees it. Okay, wow, cool. Let's focus on what's actually going to benefit me and my family. And if it's not going to benefit me and my family, I don't vote for it.
And you know who did this? If you really want to look and see, it was actually Black liberals. Black liberals gave up Blackness. And there was no other better demonstration of that than the whole Summer of Love 2020 George Floyd. Go back and look at all the cities that had those George Floyd supposedly protests turned into riots. In the front of the line, who was it? White, blue-haired liberals leading the George Floyd marches. Black people, so-called, gave up their Blackness in service of liberalism. So don't come back to me now and say, well, wait a minute, where are you? No, y'all gave that up. I didn't want it to begin with, but you all ceded that to white liberals. So now you're over there with them under their tutelage, and good luck to you. I'm somewhere else, but y'all gave that up.
Well, they
And
also allow that racism word to control them. And
Yeah.
I just don't believe in that. I've been around all types of people from all walks of life. And I've had people that didn't look like me that were really good to me. And I've had people that looked like me that wasn't so good to me. You know what I'm saying? So at this point now, I'm judging you based off of how you present yourself to me. That's what I'm judging you based off of. And I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. What are your thoughts? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on to all so you never miss an upload. Consider joining the ARP family or buy your brother a coffee. That link's in the description box below. Join us Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for ARP in the morning. And as always, keep God first. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you all next time. Peace.
It is God who arms me with strength. Yeah, I'm battle ready. He trains my hands for battle. My heart stays steady. But thanks be to God, He gives us the victory. Through my Lord Jesus Christ, fear can't live in me. I was down to the dirt, red clay on my shoes, old pain in my shirt, oh so bruised. Then the Lord hit my chest, kicked air from my breath, put power in my step.